40 days of rain, no roof, no waterproof jacket, no warm food, no dry shelter. A fire that keeps going out. And something large, circling in the dark just beyond the tree line, waiting for you to get too cold to fight back. This wasn't a disaster. This was just winter, and your ancestors survived it, repeatedly, for hundreds of thousands of years, without a single piece of modern technology. So how? First, understand what rain actually does to a human body. Getting wet isn't the problem. Getting cold is. When rain soaks through your clothing and sits against your skin, your body starts losing heat up to 25 times faster than it does in dry air. Not twice as fast, not 5 times, 25 times. A human body at normal temperature sits at around 37 degrees Celsius. Drop that core temperature by just 2 degrees to 35. And you start losing coordination. Your hands stop working properly. Your thinking slows down. Drop it to 32 degrees and you stop shivering. That sounds like improvement. It isn't. It means your body has given up trying to warm itself. Drop it below 30 and you lose consciousness. This process can happen in hours. In severe conditions, in less than 1. Your ancestors didn't have Gore-Tex. They didn't have synthetic insulation. They didn't have central heating waiting at home. What they had was something else entirely. They had animal skin. This sounds obvious, but the actual process of turning a raw animal hide into something wearable is not obvious at all. A fresh hide is wet, heavy, and begins rotting within hours. Left untreated, it stiffens into something closer to cardboard. Flexible only when wet, useless when dry, and when it gets wet again after drying, which it will in rain, it stays cold against the skin. Making a hide actually work as insulation requires removing every trace of fat from the inner surface, stretching it repeatedly while it dries, working animal brain matter, the brain of the same animal, into the fibers. The fat in the brain chemically bonds with the hide and prevents the fibers from stiffening when they dry. This process, called brain tanning, produces something genuinely remarkable. Soft, flexible, breathable. A brain-tanned hide keeps warmth in and slows heat loss dramatically, even when damp. Your ancestors didn't stumble onto this by accident. Someone figured it out, passed it on, refined it over generations until it became one of the most effective natural insulation materials ever produced. But clothing only goes so far. When the rain is truly relentless, days, weeks at a time, the second problem isn't cold. It's fire. Fire is not optional for survival in wet, cold conditions. It isn't comfort. It is the mechanism that keeps body temperature high enough to function, dries wet clothing, and cooks food that provides the calories the body needs to generate heat from the inside. And fire, in sustained rain, is almost impossible to start and nearly as hard to keep alive. Here's what ancient humans actually did. They carried fire, not a spark, not a flint and steel. Actual, living fire, transported from camp to camp in a slow-burning container. The most common method used a fungus called horse hoof fungus, or amadou. It grows on birch and beech trees, looks like a series of gray shelves jutting from the bark. The inner flesh of this fungus, dried and processed, catches a spark instantly and burns slowly. Not with a flame, but as a sustained glowing ember, for hours. Ötzi the Iceman, a 5,300-year-old naturally mummified human discovered in the Alps in 1991, was found carrying a birch bark container with processed amadou inside, still holding an ember. He was carrying fire across a mountain range in freezing conditions. He wasn't unusual. He was doing what everyone did. Quick pause. If you're enjoying this, a like and subscribe really helps. Back to it. Fire carried, shelter next. Ancient humans were not building log cabins, but they weren't sleeping in the open either. Archaeological evidence shows that as far back as 400,000 years ago, humans were constructing basic shelters. Frames of branches, covered with hides, sometimes reinforced with large bones where wood was scarce. Not permanent structures, but wind-breaking, rain-shedding structures that could be assembled quickly from available materials. The key insight is the angle. A steep, angled roof sheds rain. A shallow one collects it. Ancient humans understood this intuitively in the same way they understood that a fire built just inside the shelter's entrance, where the smoke could escape, but the heat couldn't, kept the interior warmer than a fire built outside. These aren't sophisticated engineering insights, but they're the difference between surviving a wet season and not surviving it. Then there's the food problem. Sustained rain changes the landscape. Rivers flood, animals move to higher ground, plants become inaccessible. The regular food sources that sustained a group through dry seasons disappear or become harder to reach. Ancient humans solved this the same way modern militaries solve it. They cached food, dried meat, smoked fish, rendered fat stored in animal bladders, dried berries pressed into animal fat. All of it cached in locations that could be returned to during lean periods. Not because ancient humans planned months ahead the way we think of planning, but because the pattern repeated every year. The rains came, food became scarce. The groups that had stored provisions survived. The ones that hadn't, didn't. Survival filtered for planning behavior the same way it filtered for brain tanning knowledge and fire carrying skill. The rain didn't just test physical toughness, it tested memory, organization, the ability to anticipate a future that hadn't happened yet. And here's the part that tends to surprise people: the social piece. Individual humans are not well designed to survive sustained cold and wet. Alone, without fire, without shelter, without stored food, a human in a cold, wet environment has a survival window measured in hours to days. But a group of humans, even a small one, changes the calculation entirely. Body heat shared in a small enclosed shelter raises the internal temperature enough to make the difference between survival and hypothermia. Multiple people means someone is always tending the fire while others sleep. It means the food cache is guarded. It means an injured person can be carried rather than left behind. The rain wasn't just survived by the cleverest individual, it was survived by the group. And this is probably why, across every culture that survived into the modern era, the worst punishment imaginable wasn't death. It was exile, being pushed out of the group, being sent into the rain alone. Because alone, in ancient conditions, rain didn't just make you miserable, it killed you. So here's what actually kept your ancestors alive. Not toughness, not luck, not some biological advantage modern humans have lost. Knowledge. Accumulated, refined, transmitted knowledge. Brain tanning hides, carrying fire and fungus, angling a roof correctly, caching food before it ran out, staying together when everything outside was trying to separate you. None of it was instinct. All of it had to be learned, remembered, and taught. Which means somewhere in your ancestral line, someone sat in a leaking shelter next to a struggling fire, in the middle of a weeks-long storm, and decided to figure it out. Not because they were brave, because the alternative was dying in the rain. And they were not willing to do that.